The taste of copper flooded my mouth as I watched my brother Marcus swing his fist back for another hit. Time slowed to a crawl. I could see the wedding ring on his finger, the same one he'd gotten 3 months ago when everyone called him responsible, and settled down. His wife Jennifer stood behind him, arms crossed, her voice cutting through the ringing in my ears. That's what trash gets when it doesn't know its place. My parents stood frozen by the kitchen doorway, Dad's newspaper still in his hands, Mom clutching her coffee mug like it might protect her from having to choose sides. But their silence was louder than any words. When Marcus stepped back, knuckles red with my blood, they looked right through me like I was already gone. My name is Blake. I'm 29 years old, and I used to believe family meant everything. This is the story of how I learned that sometimes family means nothing at all. The night it happened, I'd driven 4 hours from my job in Portland just to celebrate Marcus getting promoted to regional manager at Dad's construction company. I'd brought champagne, expensive stuff I couldn't really afford on my graphic designer's salary. I thought we were still the kind of family who celebrated each other's wins. I should have known something was wrong when Jennifer answered the door instead of Mom. Should have caught the way she smirked when she said, "Oh, Blake's here." Should have noticed how the conversation died when I walked into the living room, but I was stupid enough to believe in us. The fight started over something ridiculous. I'd accidentally used Jennifer's coffee mug, the one with "World's Best Wife," printed in pink letters. She exploded like I'd stolen her identity, screaming about boundaries and respect. Marcus jumped to her defense before I could even apologize, his face red with the kind of rage that had nothing to do with dishes and everything to do with finally having permission to hate me. "You've always been jealous," he spat, getting in my face. "Jealous that I got the job, jealous that I got married, jealous that Mom and Dad actually respect me." That's when I made my mistake. I laughed. Not because it was funny, but because it was so absurdly untrue. I'd been supporting myself since 18, putting myself through college while Marcus lived rent-free in the basement. I'd never asked for anything from the family business, never expected handouts. The idea that I was jealous of his participation trophy life was so backwards, it was almost hilarious. Marcus didn't find it funny. His fist connected with my cheek like a sledgehammer, the sound echoing through the house like a gunshot. I stumbled backwards, knocking over a lamp, my vision blurring as blood ran down my chin. "Get out!" Jennifer hissed, stepping over the broken glass like she was avoiding roadkill. "You don't belong here anyway." I looked at my parents, waiting for them to say something, anything. Dad folded his newspaper very carefully. Mom set down her coffee and walked to the kitchen. Neither of them looked at me. "Fine," I whispered, wiping blood on my sleeve. "I'm gone." And I was. For 9 years, I was gone. No calls on my birthday, no Christmas cards, no wedding invitation when I married Sarah 3 years later. They erased me so completely that when I ran into my high school friends, they asked if I'd moved away. "Family stuff," I'd say, and change the subject because explaining that your own blood can amputate you without anesthesia isn't really cocktail party conversation. But here's what they didn't know while they were pretending I didn't exist. I got really, really good at my job, started freelancing on weekends, built a client base, saved every penny. By year 3, I'd launched my own digital marketing agency. By year 5, I was pulling in 6 figures. By year 7, I owned the building my office was in. And by year 9, yesterday morning, I was standing in my floor-to-ceiling windowed corner office, looking out over downtown Portland, when my assistant buzzed me. "Blake, there's a family here to see you. They say they're your parents and your brother?" My hand froze on my coffee cup. 9 years of silence, and they just showed up at my office like it was 2015 and nothing had changed. Word travels fast in small towns. Someone must have mentioned my success. Probably one of Dad's old construction contacts who'd seen my business featured in the Portland Business Journal. "Send them in," I said, my voice steadier than I felt. They looked smaller than I remembered. Dad's shoulders were hunched, his face gray with the kind of exhaustion that comes from fighting battles you can't win. Mom's hair was streaked with silver, her clothes wrinkled like she'd slept in them. And Marcus looked like hell. Dark circles under his eyes, cheap suit hanging loose on his frame, the cocky smirk replaced with something that looked dangerously close to desperation. "Blake," Dad started, his voice cracking on my name like he wasn't sure he was allowed to say it. "We need to talk." I leaned back in my leather chair, studying them like artifacts in a museum. 9 years, I said quietly. 9 years of nothing, and now you need to talk. Mom stepped forward, tears already starting. "We made mistakes, honey. We know that. But family is family and—" "Family?" The word tasted like poison. "Is that what we're calling it?" Marcus finally spoke, his voice hollow. "The business is gone. Dad's cancer treatments wiped out the savings. I'm divorced, living in a studio apartment, can't make rent." He swallowed hard. "We lost the house last month." I set down my coffee and walked to the window, watching traffic move like ants 30 floors below. Behind me, I could hear Mom crying softly, the same sound she'd made when her sister died, except this time, she was mourning a death she'd caused. "I'm sorry to hear that," I said, and meant it. Not sorry enough to fix it, but sorry the way you're sorry when you read about strangers losing their homes in the newspaper. "We know we screwed up," Dad said, his voice getting stronger with desperation. "But you're doing well. Look at this place. You could help us get back on our feet." I turned around, studying their faces. They looked exactly like what they were, people who had burned their bridges and were shocked to find themselves on an island. "Help you," I repeated slowly. "The way you helped me when Marcus split my lip, the way you helped me when Jennifer called me trash in your living room, the way you helped me through 9 birthdays, 2 promotions, a wedding, and a divorce you knew nothing about." The silence stretched like a rubber band, ready to snap. "That's different," Marcus said finally. "That was just family drama. This is serious." I laughed, the same laugh that had gotten me punched 9 years ago. "Just family drama, right." I walked back to my desk, pulled out my checkbook, and wrote out a check. Their eyes lit up like slot machines hitting jackpot. But when I handed it to Dad, his face fell. The check was made out for exactly $0.00. "That's what family gets," I said, echoing Jennifer's words from that night. "When it doesn't know its place." Marcus's face flushed red. "You can't be serious. We're blood. We're your family." "Were," I corrected. Past tense. You made that choice when you chose your wife's feelings over your brother's face, when you chose silence over speaking up, when you chose 9 years of nothing. I pressed the button on my intercom. "Security, please escort these visitors out of the building. They won't be returning." As the security guards appeared at my door, Mom grabbed my arm. "Blake, please, don't do this. Don't be like us." I looked down at her hand, remembering how it used to feel safe when I was scared. Now it just felt foreign. "I'm not being like you," I said gently, removing her fingers from my sleeve. "I'm being exactly like you taught me to be." They left quietly, dignity being the only thing they had left to lose. I watched from my window as they climbed into a rusted pickup truck that looked like it might not make it to the parking garage exit, let alone wherever they were calling home these days. My assistant knocked and came in with a fresh cup of coffee. "You okay, boss?" "Yeah," I said, surprised to find it was true. "I really am." That evening I sat on my balcony with a beer, watching the city lights twinkle like stars that had fallen to earth. I called Sarah even though we'd been divorced for 2 years. We'd stayed friends after our marriage ended. We'd simply grown in different directions, her wanting kids and a suburban life, while I was still building my business and healing from family wounds. She understood why I wasn't ready for either. "They actually showed up at your office?" she said, her voice incredulous. "After 9 years of radio silence?" "With their hands out," I confirmed. "Apparently someone in Dad's old network told them about the business." "How do you feel?" I thought about it. "Free," I said finally, like I just paid off a debt I didn't even know I owed. "Good," she said firmly. "They made their choice a long time ago. Living with the consequences isn't your responsibility." The next morning brought phone calls. Lots of them. Apparently, desperate people tell desperate stories, and my family had been making the rounds. They were explaining to anyone who'd listen that their successful son was heartlessly refusing to help in their time of need. But Portland's a small city in all the ways that matter, and I'd been networking here for 9 years. I'd built relationships, earned respect, proven my character through actions rather than DNA. When people called to check in on me, they weren't checking to see if the story was true. They were checking to see if I was okay. By the end of the week, the narrative had shifted. People weren't asking why I wouldn't help my family. They were asking what kind of family abandons their son for 9 years and then expects him to finance their comeback tour. Marcus showed up at my office building twice more. The first time, security escorted him out before he made it to the elevators. The second time, he was already drunk at 11 a.m., screaming in the lobby about blood being thicker than water until the police arrived. Later, I watched it all on the security monitors from my office. I felt nothing but a vague sadness for the man he could have been if he'd ever learned to take responsibility for his choices. The final piece of the puzzle came 3 months later, when Dad called my direct office line. I almost didn't answer, but something in me wanted to hear what he had to say. "Blake?" His voice was quieter than I'd ever heard it. "I just wanted you to know Marcus is getting help. AA, anger management, the works. And your mother and I are in counseling." I didn't respond. "We know we can't undo what we did," he continued. "We know we can't take back 9 years, but we want you to know we understand now why you said no. We understand that we taught you how to cut people off by cutting you off first." I closed my eyes, listening to the sounds of traffic far below. "I'm not calling to ask for money," he said. "I'm calling to say I'm sorry, and that I'm proud of who you became without us. The cancer treatments are working, by the way. We're managing month to month, living in a small apartment near the hospital. Marcus is doing better. 6 months sober now and working at a local garage." After he hung up, I sat in my office for a long time, watching the sun set over the mountains. It wasn't forgiveness. I wasn't ready for that, might never be ready for that, but it was acknowledgement, recognition. The apology I'd needed to hear 9 years too late. I never called him back, but I didn't change my phone number either. Sometimes healing isn't about reconciliation. Sometimes it's just about knowing that the people who broke you finally understand they broke themselves in the process. These days, when people ask about my family, I tell them the truth. I built my own. My team at the agency, my friends who became chosen siblings, my ex-wife who still sends me funny memes because she knows they make me laugh. We're not connected by blood, but we're connected by something stronger. Choice. Every morning, I wake up in my downtown loft, make coffee in whatever mug I want. I remember that I am exactly where I belong, not because someone handed me a place at their table, but because I built my own table and invited people who actually wanted to be there. The scar on my cheek faded years ago, but the lesson never did. Family isn't about who shares your DNA. It's about who shows up when you need them, who celebrates your victories without jealousy, and who loves you not despite your flaws, but including them. And sometimes, the greatest gift your biological family can give you is teaching you to recognize real family when you find it. If you're out there carrying the weight of people who chose to walk away from you, remember this: their absence doesn't diminish your worth, it reveals it. When they made you small, they were showing you their limitations, not yours. You are not responsible for fixing the people who broke you. You are not obligated to fund the dreams of people who called your dreams worthless, and you are not required to open doors for people who slammed them in your face. Your peace is not selfish. Your boundaries are not cruel. Your success is not their salvation. Build your own table. Invite people who deserve chairs, and never apologize for refusing to serve your heart on a platter to people who already proved they have no appetite for your love. Before you go, here's a quick bonus for sticking around. If you love learning and growing like I do, you need to try audiobooks. I've got an exclusive deal with Audible. Your first month is completely free. That's access to over 500,000 titles, zero cost to you. All the details are waiting in the description. Don't miss this one.